Welcome to scuba class. We have a lot less people than normal, and I think some will come in, and we'll just get started. So one thing I wanted to do was have everyone do introductions because we have had some changes. We had a couple people that needed to postpone, and we had some new people join. So why don't we just really quickly introduce those who are here. Let's start with, I'm Gabrielli. I guess I should have introduced myself. I'm the instructor trainer. And Ronny, why don't you go next, and then Victor?
There we go. Hey, I'm Ronny Ahmed. I've been diving for 7.5 years. I'm your instructor in training. I have my presentation on next Tuesday. Yeah, look forward to working with everyone.
Yeah, Ronny is the first person with paralysis to earn his dive master certification, his assistant instructor certification, and now he's finishing his instructor certification. So he is awesome. All right, Victor, by the way, I attended your webinar yesterday. Excellent.
I saw you were there. Yeah.
We have superstars among us.
Yeah. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Victor Blanco. I've been diving for 35 years. I started when I was 12 years old. My background is in marine biology. So actually, I got into marine biology because I started scuba diving when I was a kid. Right now I'm assistant instructor in training, almost there as a certified assistant instructor, and then I'm going to move on to be an instructor certified.
And Victor is actually already progressing on his instructor certification, even though there's just a couple little loose ends we need to tie up with assistant instructor. And he's just been a fantastic member of our team. So glad that he's here. And Ronny's lecture, he mentioned, is next Tuesday. I'll send a link to everybody, but if you're able to attend, that's going to be a really, is it not next Tuesday? When is it, Ronny? What's the date? It is next Tuesday, isn't it? When is it?
It's the 17th, so I think it's a week from.
Okay, sorry, a week from Tuesday. I was like, I don't think it's next. Yeah, anyway, I'll send a link to everyone if you would like to attend. And Victor gave some lectures not too long ago, and he'll have some more to do with his instructor certification as well. So lots of really good stuff about to happen. Ronny's going to give a second lecture too. So why don't we start with Ben and Megan?
Hello, I'm Megan of Ben and Megan.
Hey, I'm Ben. And we're excited to be here.
Great. And you've already had your first pool session, right?
And it was awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It got us
so excited.
Yeah.
Oh, yay. All right, Christopher. Unmute yourself.
Hey guys.
Yeah.
Yay. Hey guys. Name is Chris. Don't have diving experience, but very excited to be here. And looking forward to my first diving session.
Great. You are going to be there on Friday, right?
Yes, on Friday. Yeah.
Excellent. Leah. Leah? Unmute.
Hello, Leah and Caitlin and our menagerie of pets.
We only see like a silhouette, so.
Alice.
Good enough. That's fine. We're envisioning pets there.
Did it not start the video?
Yeah, it's just there's a really bright light behind you, so it looks like a silhouette. So we can't really see you, but that's okay.
We're here.
And you two already had your pool session?
We did. It was awesome.
Yay. Okay. Tilly.
Hi, I'm Tilly. I did have my pool session on Friday. It was amazing. Loved it. I'm happy I got to meet everybody. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. And you're in the class that already had their first pool session. So we've got Jack, who's next. Yeah, Jack. And Jack is going to be in the Friday session coming up. He was so excited that he almost showed up for the other session too.
I did get a little confused, but I was pretty stoked to show up. I had my fins ready and all that. I just finished dinner. I had some awesome tacos my stepmom made, and
Nice.
I'm excited to hop in the pool.
That's great. All right, we'll see you Friday bright and early. And don't forget to
Bright
get
and
a
early.
don't forget to get a COVID test beforehand, okay?
That's right. Do I
Yeah.
have to do the
You can do a home test. You can do a
I
home
can do a home
test.
test too?
Yep,
Okay,
that's
great.
totally
Awesome.
fine. Just take a picture of it. No worries.
Okay, sweet.
Yeah, Jill.
Hi guys, I'm Jill. I had my first pool session this past Friday.
Great. Wasn't it on a Saturday or am I just imagining it?
Oh yeah, no, my timeline is just all.
You
sorts
weren't
of
the only
weird,
one who said it was on
you
a
were
Friday.
correct. Yeah,
I started to doubt
it was
myself.
on Saturday. Yeah, I
It's
work
been
on
a-
Fridays, so
it's
I
been a
definitely
long
was not
week.
swimming.
Yeah, I get it. All right, Nan.
Hi, everyone. I had my first session last Saturday. It was great to be back in the pool. I'm looking forward to the next one. Had a great time. I appreciate everybody's patience with my dunderheadedness, but hopefully it'll get better.
Listen, you did awesome. You did amazing. And the one thing about scuba is you'll learn that we're all very patient with anyone who has any challenges. We're going to work with you. We're going to, you know, hold your hands and work through the skills and get everybody to the same place. And
No, it was
you had a
great.
great attitude the entire time. And I loved having you and your daughters there together was just awesome. So
Thanks.
yeah, thank you. All right, Lindsay.
Hey, I'm Lindsay. I had my first pool session last Saturday and it felt great to get back in the pool and work on the skills. So excited to go do some open water diving.
Awesome. And you've got one more pool session coming up in a couple weeks too, right? So
that's right.
Good. Okay. And Melanie. Melanie's iPhone. I think she keeps getting kicked off and back on again. Are you there? All right. Well, we'll just move forward, and if she hops on at some point with her audio, we'll have her introduce herself. Okay, so I wanted to begin by saying those of you in the last pool session did awesome. This Friday is an intense session. It's for people who are very comfortable in the water already, and it's going to be a lot of fast action, no breaks other than restroom. You know, pack your lunch, pack everything you need because we're going to be doing everything at the same time. Who just joined us? iPhone. Yeah, go ahead and unmute yourself and introduce yourself. Unmute yourself.
Okay, sorry. Sorry about that. I'm Michaela. It's nice to meet everybody. Sorry I'm getting on late. I was trying to get it all set up. My phone was acting crazy.
Probably all the storms. I know all of us have been dealing with storms the last couple of hours. So yeah, and Melanie typed in the chat box. She's here, slow connection, but happy to be here. So very good. All right, let me go ahead and start sharing the screen. And this is being recorded for those of you who are in weird places and can't exactly watch very well. It is being recorded, but we, of course, would like to have as much participation as possible. So give me just a second here. Okay, let me move this out of the way. Okay. There we go. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Welcome to scuba class. Again, I'm Gabrielle. I'm your instructor. We have a great teaching team. This is some of our team is here tonight. Others will be kind of dialing in, but this is who we have currently. Mainly tonight, you're going to be hearing from Victor, who's working on his instructor certification. This is the tentative remaining schedule. Oh my goodness, they're appearing out of order, but let me just pop them up on the screen. They're in your email as well. We have a lot going on. The first 3 events coming up are all for accelerated students only. We have Friday the 13th, a very long pool session at Florida A&M University. Saturday the 14th, tentatively Troy Springs State Park in Branford. Sunday the 15th, charter boat diving in Panama City, Florida. Then we have everybody together on Friday the 20th for the next lecture. That's a really important module. Everybody hopefully will be able to be here. Sunday the 22nd, we have this second pool session for the class that started already. And then Friday the 3rd, we have the final review and exam. This is for everybody that evening. We also just had 2 new people sign up last night for the accelerated session on Friday. So it's crazy. We had 2 people need to postpone and 2 more jumped in. And so that's cool. Saturday the 4th, we have Morrison Springs in Ponce de Leon. Sunday the 5th, we have Big Blue on the Wississa River. Saturday the 11th, we have Blue Grotto in Williston. Saturday the 18th, we have charter boat diving in Panama City, Florida. Now, all the locations are subject to change based on conditions, weather, a number of other factors, but this is our tentative schedule, okay? Those of you who haven't yet responded, especially the new people, make sure you send me your sizes so I can bring appropriate sizing for Friday, and just make sure that you have everything, okay? And the swimming requirements that everybody needs to do, the exit requirements to fulfill the entrance requirements, 300-yard surface distance swim, 50-foot underwater swim without push-offs, the standard says, but I was held to a standard of being allowed to push off. Therefore, I'm going to allow you the same thing. And then a 15-minute treading, water, or survival floating. So before we kind of get started in, I wanted to talk about ear clearing and how important ear clearing is. You heard us talk about the Valsalva maneuver, and we practiced it last time, but I want everyone to practice together. You're going to gently pinch your nose and blow air out through your nose. Everyone go ahead and try that. Next is the voluntary tubal opening. You're going to tense your throat and push your jaw forward. Okay, you're just kind of pushing your jaw forward. Everyone try that. Next is the Toynbee maneuver. You're going to pinch your nose and swallow. I find swallowing actually works better than blowing air out. Swallowing works better, but I don't need to pinch my nose. Next is the Frenzel maneuver. You're going to pinch your nose and make the sound of the letter K. So you're kind of like touching your tongue to the roof of your mouth when you're doing this. Feel that? Next is the Lowry technique. You're going to pinch your nose, you're going to blow and swallow. So you're kind of doing everything with your mouth to make sure that it actually works. And finally, the Edmonds technique. You're going to pinch your nose, blow, and push your jaw forward. Okay? So lots of different techniques. Find what works best for you. Those of you who've been on planes before, it's possible that a different technique works for you in the air versus in the water. And so keep that in mind. Also keep in mind that Docs Pro plugs will really, really help you. They're the only vented plugs that are specifically for scuba diving. And I believe in them so much that I not only have them myself, but I became a distributor. And I sell them for less than what you can get on Amazon or eBay because the tax and everything is included. And it's $15 for regular and $20 for leashed. And I did just order a bunch more because I started to run low on sizes after the last pool session. So that's all I have for me, and I'm going to stop sharing now. Any questions before we move on? Okay, I'll toss it on to the next person. Is it Ronny next?
Yeah, I need co-host.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I made you a co-host.
You did. I accidentally left.
Oh, okay. I was like, gosh, I was sure I did, but it's okay. I'm watching iPhone walking. The sky looks nice near you.
Okay. Do resize real quick.
You're good.
Okay, so first off, let's go over the review. So we have pressure. So does anyone remember the important pressure measurements that we had from last class?
Is this with the 10 feet equals like 33 meters?
Yeah, that's one of them. Very good.
No, that's 10 meters, 30. I feel like I got it mixed up, but yeah. And that's one, or that's, I don't remember. One third. I forgot. I'm sorry.
You're close. You're very close. It is 1 atmosphere. So 33 feet of seawater, or 10 meters of seawater, is equal to 1 atmosphere, which is equal to 14.7 psi. So 14.7 pounds per square inch is equal to 1 atmosphere. That's an important equivalent, as well as the 33 feet of seawater or the 34 feet of fresh water. So then air is 78% nitrogen and 21% oxygen. We have Boyle's law. So that is the pressure and volume law. So as pressure increases, volume decreases. As volume increases, pressure decreases. Dalton's law. That is important for partial pressures and things of that. Finding your partial pressures of oxygen and stuff like that. Henry's law, this is the soda example that we gave you guys. And Archimedes' principle, which is the buoyancy principle. So however much water you displace, that is going to be your buoyancy factor. And however much you weigh is going to dictate whether you sink or float. And some additional review that you guys should definitely know. Anytime you see a highlight, that is something that is almost certainly going to be tested, just so you guys know. So use a wetsuit below 80 degrees. Scuba cylinders need an annual visual inspection, as well as a 5-year hydrostatic. The hydrostatic is to 5/3 of its pressure. The red is the first color to disappear as you descend. Objects are going to appear closer and larger underwater. We want you to clear your ears early and often. That's the pro plugs will help with that. The earlier you do it, the easier it will be, the less pressure you'll have. One of the things that you'll find is if you go too far and you put too much pressure on your ear before clearing, you won't be able to clear it. You'll have to come up a little bit, clear, then go back down. But it's very easy. It should never hurt. This is really important. A lot of people think when you're doing the Valsalva maneuver or anything like that, that you should be, tearing at it. No, gently, softly blow. You don't want to hurt your eardrums. You don't want to hurt your nose or anything like that. And then this is the #1 rule of scuba diving. Always breathe, never hold your breath. So moving on to regulators. Some of you guys got to work with this at the pool session, which was great. So this provides your cylinder pressure to the diver. You have your 2 pressure stages. It is a demand open circuit. So as you inhale, it provides it, is what that means. Your first stage is the port. So right here, first stage. And then the second stage are the regs. And that is just to make sure you're not getting too much pressure or uncontrolled air. So here's another photo of it. So the first stage and the second stage. As you probably the people who are in the pool session realize, there's a orientation of the regulator. So we're looking at the top of the regulator right now. So we would have that part facing up, and there's a little chin guard that rests on our chin while we're diving. So the first stage, you have outlet ports, which you plug all the hoses into, screw all the hoses into. A 7/16 high pressure hose as well for your gauge, as well as a 3/8 low pressure hose. That's for your breathing inflator and dry suit. And there's a bunch of reasons for why they do the high pressure versus low pressure, which we can talk about another time if you'd like. Regulator care, special care after seawater diving, rinse after each use. soap outside after dive series, dust cap on, do not press purge. This is super important. We're going to remind you several times, please put the dust cap back onto the regulators. The regulators are super easy to destroy. If you get water inside of them, it's going to rust, and breathing in rust is not good for you. Annual professional service, and then a full overhaul each 2 years as well. So care of gear at resorts. So what you see right now is these people cleaning off their gear with these essentially buckets. Oop, I don't know how that happened. These buckets filled with fresh water. And especially on boats, you need to make sure you're taking care of where you're putting your stuff. So a lot of people like to do underwater photography with scuba diving. They will have a specific tub for cameras, and they will have a tub for everything else. Use the tub for everything else for your snorkel, reg, stuff like that. The cameras are chemical sensitive, so if you cross them, you might ruin someone's gear, and they will not be happy with you. So alternative air sources. So we do not use this one, but a pony bottle is something that you'll see pretty often. This is just a spare air container that divers will carry with them in case they run out of air, but that is just kind of a silly way to dive.
Yeah, photographers do that. Photographers carry these a lot, and because they get distracted taking pictures. Just to kind of let you know, I personally, if I'm diving and I see someone with a pony bottle, I think I do not want to be their buddy. Because these are people that just push the limits pretty much. So
yep. So that's one of the reasons that we don't use them, because it forms bad habits and stuff like that. We want you to look at your gauge. We want you to pay attention to how much you're breathing and all that stuff. We want you to be conscious divers. So this is what we use. We have an octopus. Ours looks a little bit different, but it functions the same. As a matter of fact, ours is a little more convenient, I would even say, because ours work both directions. Most octopuses work in one direction, and we will go over that in the pool sessions for those of you who are not comfortable with this yet. And then finally, you have the integrated into BC. And let me tell you, having just come back from a HSA dive program where we had 2 students without octopuses, it is miserable. It is absolutely horrible. I almost don't want to dive with people who don't have octopuses. Obviously, it doesn't quite work that easy because I'm an instructor and whatnot. But as a student, if I see someone without an octopus, I would personally stay away, because that means they're not going to be able to help you nearly as well if you have an out-of-air emergency. So we will show you in the pool session. Some of you who've had the pool session understand why we're talking about this so much. The octopus is incredibly helpful, incredibly useful, and it just sits right on your neck. There's no reason to not have it, honestly. And then the last thing, the things that the students had for the HSA was this, the integrated into the BC. And part of the reason that this is a issue for us is because if you can see this right here, this part right here, it's only going down to this person's elbow. That means from here to here, that's how much breathing space you have to your partner. That's not a lot of space between you two. So an octopus usually has a 6 to 7 foot hose on it as well, which allows you a lot more space to move around and to comfortably kick. So information systems, we have analog, computer, a couple of computers, compass, and then a manual compass as well. So showing you some stuff about compasses, obviously used for directions. You have mounted on a wrist or on a console. All the ones we have are on a console. It's just kind of more convenient for us that way. And we don't use navigation a ton outside of advanced classes, honestly. Even then, we don't use them a lot. Always follow the lubber line. That's this red line right here. That is to indicate your direction. So here we'll have some a better view of that. So this is a top view right here. So you have the bezel, lubber line, north pointing arrow to make it very obvious which direction is north. Your lens and the card. So 2 things to note right here. So as you can see in this picture, you have a side window. One of the things that's super important when you're underwater that people don't think about, especially when they're used to doing it on land. When you're on land, it's just your natural tendency to just, you're right here. So the compass moves just fine. Underwater, you're not going to be perfectly level. So you have to make the compass level so that it can spin properly and it'll give you the right reading. If you have it tilted, the bezel can't, or not the bezel, the card can't turn and you're not going to get a proper reading. So nice and flat. If they have that side window there for a reason. If you want to hold it out in front of you, that way you can look through the side window, or you can look through it on top, whatever's easiest for you. So using a compass, so for this person, they want to head to a 30-degree mark. So they set their compass 30 degrees off the lubber line and then head towards that direction. And another accessory we have is underwater flashlights. This is obviously for night dives and overhead dives and stuff like that. You also have dive knives. You really don't need one, honestly. I know several of the leadership carry one, but that's really just for ocean dives. And it's really just to cut fish free from line and stuff like that. I've literally never used one otherwise. I've helped cut a few fish free on wrecks and stuff like that. But yeah, you're not going to be using these knives to protect yourselves from a shark. That's just not necessary. Sharks are friends. So dive flags, this is a way to show who's diving where and to have a safety measure, as well as the safety sausage. So these are for navigable waters. You use these to make sure a boat's not going to hit you or something along the lines of that. And then specialized equipment. So this is the first class that we often recommend to people after they're open water. It's advanced in nitrox. So you learn advanced techniques and nitrox techniques in the class together. And this is a nitrox filling station. There's a bunch of different ways to do so. But nitrox diving has multiple advantages, but it does require special training, which we do offer. And then beyond that, they have extended range. So technical diving, and that is beyond recreational. That's where you'll see people setting up like bottles of oxygen at 20 feet, stuff like that. Very, very intense diving. I've never done anything like it. So rebreathers is another type of specialty. You do need to get certified for this as well. Rebreathers it's a newer technology, I should say. It's not new, but it's a newer technology compared to scuba. It uses chemicals to absorb carbon dioxide from the air you are breathing out. So not only does it scrub the carbon dioxide as it goes through the system, it also adds oxygen back into the loop at a controlled rate. So that way your PO2s are always at the perfect level. But again, it's a very specialized piece of equipment, very complex and requires specialized certification. So the buddy system, those of you that were at the pool will understand the importance of the buddy system. One of the big things that we care about with scuba diving is safety. We want to make sure that if you ever have an emergency, that you are going to be able to handle that situation. So why have a buddy? For exactly like I said, this is a safety measure that we have. If you were to ever have an issue underwater, so you get caught on something, you start running out of air, you start panicking for some reason, your buddy is going to be there, should be there. And how close should you be? You should be within action distance, within reaction distance. So there's no set exact distance that we want you at. We want you close enough to your buddy that if they were to have an immediate emergency, that you could get to them and help them without them injuring themselves or anything like that. And they should obviously be able to do the same for you. And it's one of the reasons we tell you to make sure every minute or so, we want you looking back, checking on your buddy. And one of the biggest signs we're going to give you, especially on your first dives, your first checkout dives, I guarantee you, we're going to ask every single one of you this. We're going to go like this. And that means, where's your buddy? We want to know where your buddy is.
Can you do that a little bigger? The screen's little.
Yeah. So where's your buddy? Yeah, Victor's got it too. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. So if we give you that signal, we want you to literally turn around and look and show us where your buddy is. You know, grab them, point them out, whatever it is. Very important part of our safety system.
I take it from here, Ronnie.
Awesome.
Okay, let me share my screen. All right. You can see my slides well. Okay, so as Ronnie was explaining, one of the most important rules, besides like never hold your breath, is always dive with the body. And that's for different, especially for safety reasons, right? So because as Ronnie was saying, buddies help with reminders and assistance. They help us during our pre-dive check. They provide feedback and you work with them as a team. And that's a really, really important thing to do when you are underwater. So what does a body do? A good body does the body check, and we will go through that also in the pool session. Once you set your equipment, you will check each other's equipment to make sure that everything is secure, that everything is working properly, that the cylinder is, the valve is open all the way, that the power inflator is working, that the BCD is properly attached to the cylinder. So we want to make sure that everything is just working correctly. And that's one of the jobs of your body. It helps on the surface. If you need to hand out some of the equipment, then your body is going to be there to support that before and after the dive. And of course, always continue the body check. If even in the water, you can correct something. If you see something is not right in your body's equipment, your body needs to help you out with that. And it stays close enough while underwater, on a, in a distance that you can at least have visual contact in case anything comes up, that you can reach to your body pretty quickly. Okay, so the body check is just to make sure that our air is on, that the cylinder is full, so we have to check our gauge, that the cylinder band is tight, and so we lift the cylinder using the band of the BCD to make sure it's not going to slip while we're diving underwater, that the hoses are correct. Sometimes we have seen people setting up the equipment and then the regulator and the octopus are in the wrong position. So that's important during the body check to make sure that the hoses are correct, that the BC power inflator is working, and that the weight system is worn by your body. And of course, you need to make sure that the diver is physically and emotionally fit. If you see that there is some level of stress or anxiety before the dive, which is totally normal, especially in new sites that you're going to dive, then you can discuss that with your body and then try to relax and just get rid of that anxiety before the dive. Staying close to your body, it must be close enough to render assistance in case of an emergency. Closer on turbid or deep dives. And this is because, especially when there's low visibility, you want to make sure you really can keep an eye on your body. And in some cases, within a touch distance, if this is a training like we are going through right now, or during challenging dive like currents or drifting dives, then you want to be as close as you can between a touch distance with them. And this is a skill that you learn with practice to keep track of your body. Of course, you want to enjoy your dive and you want your body to enjoy the dive, but once in a while, you just need to check on each other, make sure that everything is going okay, do the okay sign, and just follow up on that. Where does your body have to be positioned? And that's before the dive, you need to agree if your body is going to be to your right or to your left or a little bit in front, because all the sides, it can vary depending on the side that you're going to be diving. And you have to make sure, of course, that if you agree a position, you maintain that position during the dive. Of course, the recommendation is to be side by side, especially because that's a way to keep that eye contact that I mentioned all the time. One behind the other is the least desirable, but sometimes it will be required, not in open water, especially, but in other type of dives, like in caves. One of the divers have to be in front and the other in the back. Okay, so know your dive plan. Each one of you, while you're on top, and you are gonna hear this a lot during all this training, is plan your dive and then dive your plan. So with your body, you need to make sure you have a plan. Each one have to know general directions of the dive, what you're gonna do, the time and depth that you're planning to proceed with the dive. The activities, what are you going to do down there? Just are you going to take samples? Are you going to just enjoy? Are you going to take video or pictures? So just need to agree on that during your planning. Agree if some changes are made, because each site is different, and look for your body at all times. And it is recommended every minute. And despite it sounds like pretty quick, 1 minute is a long time, especially when you're underwater. All right. So if you're planning a 20 minutes or a 20 minutes bottom time dive, then you're just going to check for your body like 20 times. So, but what happens when you can't find your body? Okay. So if separated, first you have to look around to trying to find your body. Not more than 1 minute. And this is important. Use noise signals if that's available. Some of us, we have different ways to make some type of noise. There's like a rubber band with a ball that you can have on your cylinder, in the bottom of your cylinder, so you can make a noise. Other people will use the back part of the knife to hit the cylinder as well to make noise. So there are different ways to do that. When the visibility is bad, ascend a leader and circle to look for bubbles, and that's one of the best way to see if because sometimes your body can be deeper than you. So that's one important thing to do. And after a minute, ascend to the surface and check and wait for your body. Body diving is all about sharing an activity and all about safety. And this is one of the most important things when you're diving. Make sure you feel comfortable with the body that is being assigned to you or that you pick, and to make sure that you're both are going to take care of your own and your body's safety. Okay, so in this module, we saw the basics about equipment, exposure suits. We talk about the wetsuits, the weighting systems, the buoyancy compensators, cylinders involved, regulators, some of the accessories that Ronny mentioned, and specialized equipment like the rebreathers and the diving with a body. Does anyone has a question so far before we move to the next module? If you have, please unmute yourself and ask the question. Right? Okay, so we can move to the next one. So the next module is about skills needed to dive safe. So we're going to talk about water entry, scuba skills, managing excess of stress, which is a very, very important aspect of diving, managing physical problems and emergencies, and introduction to dive tables. So make sure you have your dive tables, your air tables near you, because at some point we're gonna go through the dive tables and start working on getting familiar with it and do some exercises so you know how it really works. Okay, let's start with water entries. And this is, of course, the site that you select to go diving is what's gonna determine what type of entry you're gonna use. For example, when we go to Blue Grotto, we can do a giant stride or we can do a back roll. But if you are in a boat, depending on the boat, you can do a back roll or a giant stride as well. But if you are on diving from a shore, for example, in the jetties in Panama City, then the entry is going to be different. Of course, is what is called surf entry. Let me see what's going on here. It's not moving. I don't know why it didn't show the pictures. I think it had some pictures here, but okay, let's move to the next one. Okay, once you go in the water, usually the recommendation is to do the entry with your regulator in your mouth. If it's a giant stride or a back roll, we will always have a regulator in our mouth. So we're going to be breathing the air in our cylinder, right? But once we surface, and before moving to the, to the point where we're going to start or dive, then we're going to switch to a snorkel. Okay. So we have to snorkel to the side and switch regulator.
Hey, Victor?
Yes, I don't know.
I think what happened was the link that you sent to everyone was through a Microsoft thing, and it seems to have stripped the photos. So why don't you go ahead and go to the link and re-download it, and I'll just go back and do the last 2 slides if that's okay.
Yes, please do it while I download.
So yeah, you go ahead and find that, and I will continue because I think this is important. So
it is important. Yeah.
All right. Let me just continue here. In the screen. All right, give me a moment. Everyone see water entries up there? Okay. So the different kinds of entries that we're typically going to do include shore entries. Here in this photo, you can see people holding hands with a regulator in their mouth, walking backward. This is the kind of entry that we would do in somewhere like California with big waves. But, and the book will ask you this, and there's even possibly an exam question on this. But in real life, in our neck of the woods, we have small waves. So what we actually do, like when we go to the jetties to dive in Panama City, what we're going to do is we're going to be walking forward using our snorkel instead of killing our air. And we're going to walk forward. And if a breaker comes, we turn our back, let the wave hit us, and continue past the breakers to put our fins on. And then we switch to regulator and dive. A back roll entry on the left is the next way. Back roll is a really common entry from a small private boat, especially. But we do back roll entries a lot. I love back roll entries. They're super easy and they're fun. And then the third one is a boat entry, a giant stride entry. And so this giant stride entry, he's not doing the best job, but one hand is over the mask and the regulator. The other one is over the weight belt clasp. And he's just taking a step into the water. And that is the most common entry from a large dive boat.
Why over the weight belt clasp? Is that
because people, yes, great question, Megan. People drop their weight belts all the time. I can't tell you how many I've had to rescue all over the place. So if people have a weight belt and you don't have your hand on your weight belt clasp, you might hit the water and the water might force it open and you lose your weight belt, and then you're not going to be able to sink. So I've had to go, dive down to the bottom of the ocean and pick up people's weight belts and bring them to them. So yeah, so put it over the weight belt clasp. And then once you jump in the water, you can take care of that. So that's
can't they make a better clasp?
Well, I think it's just the force of the water hitting the clasp. I'll tell you what, though, here's what happens in real life. We're integrated. So once you get certified, once you earn your certification, you then can start wearing integrated weights. And so integrated, you're not going to have a class, but you don't have to worry about that. And in fact, when you come diving with me anytime, you're always welcome to borrow gear. And after you're certified, you can say, I don't want to wear a weight belt. Can I try integrated? Okay. Really good discussion. Thank you, Megan. So, we always use our snorkel whenever possible to the dive site. If there's big waves, of course, we're not going to do that. But if it's flat and we're in freshwater or we're in salt and it's really flat waves, we are going to snorkel to the dive site and then switch to the regulator. We want to save our air whenever possible. And even in the pool, we do the same thing. It's a good practice anyway to go between the regulator and the snorkel. So any questions about that? Victor, were you able to find the presentation or you want me to continue?
Yeah, I have it, but if you want to continue a couple more.
Yeah, I'll continue a couple more and then you can take over after that. So I believe Victor already said this, but 3 really important rules: equalize early and often, clear your ears, clear your ears, clear your ears, clear at the surface, clear as you descend, always breathe, never hold your breath. That's why when we're doing skills like having your regulator out of your mouth, we want to see you blowing bubbles. Melanie, you have a question? Melanie? What kind of snorkel do I recommend? I recommend the most basic snorkel, just a really simple snorkel. And coral reef, as Jack said, will help. But just a really simple snorkel. You don't need a dry snorkel. Matter of fact, just don't spend a lot of money. Just get a nice snorkel that's simple. Okay. So go ahead.
Oh, if we have a dry snorkel, is there a reason to not use that other than like for clearing purposes during the class and stuff? Like if we were out diving, is there a reason to not use the dry snorkel?
The main reason is that it's going to get in your way. It tends to have a ball and it just tends to get, caught up with things. It's not as clean as not having a dry snorkel. You can use one. It's just really not recommended. So again, always breathe, never hold your breath. When the regulator's out of your mouth, blow bubbles. Exhale continuously. Correct weighting when there's no air in the buoyancy compensation device, BC, BCD. You're going to be floating above your mask. And the best way to do that is when you have very little air. And so you're going to, wait till the end of a dive and make sure that your weighting is good. I can tell you that what I do is probably very different than most instructors. What I do is I try to train you on using as little weight as possible, because I find that the majority of divers out there are very overweighted. And as a result, they consume a lot more air. They're much more exhausted. Their form of the trim isn't good. And so if you can master the art of breathing and relaxing your breathing, what's going to happen is you're going to get much more trim in the water. You're going to be horizontal. It's going to be easier for you. You're going to use air a lot less. I'll use typically 1 cylinder for 3 to 4 dives. And, that's not normal, but that's because I'm not normal. I just am so relaxed in the water, and I can wear no weight. I'll typically carry like a couple pounds in case I need to help somebody. But if I take my weight out and give it to them, I can still dive with no problem. So if you're descending on a line, it makes it a little easier. So those of you going to the Panama City dives, when you descend on the line, just know that it is going to be easier. You're going to be pulling yourself down a line and clearing your ears as you're going down. You can come back up that same line too. So again, clear the ears early and often. And then once you get to depth, you're going to inflate your BC to become neutrally buoyant. So and this is important to keep in mind, when you descend in the water, you're going to become heavier. Okay, that is a test question, by the way. When you descend, you are going to become heavier. Tell me what law it is that causes this to happen. Anyone? Ronny just went over some of the laws. Somebody give me a guess.
Boils?
Yes, Megan, good job.
Yes, all right, we got it right.
Yes, Ben and Megan.
We were like, I think it's that. I think
you're bam. Ben and Megan, bam. Good job. Yes. So exactly. pressure and volume are neutrally buoyant. Sorry, are inversely proportional. I got distracted by my dog for a second here. So they are inversely proportional. So when one increases, the other one decreases. So I mentioned being neutrally buoyant. If you're too light or too heavy, you're going to be in a head down, foot up position. If you're too light, you're too heavy, your feet are going to be down. Unfortunately, when I'm diving, I see people all the time who are overweighted and their feet are down and they're hitting things with their feet. They're dragging them. It's really not a good position to be in. You want to be neutrally buoyant. And how do you get there? You learn to relax your body in the water. Learn to streamline your gear too. You don't want to have anything hanging, dangling, dragging, because it can mess up your gear and it can mess up coral reefs and lots of other things. It can also get caught on things if you're not careful. So during ascent, you're going to check your gauges and you're going to put one arm up and turning, doing full 360 around and beginning a safe ascent, really slow. How slow? Is those of you who were previously certified probably learned slower than your bubbles. It's actually slower than that. It's hand over hand. If you're on a line, it's this slow, really slow. So when you dive with us, just watch how we ascend and go to the same pace as us. Don't try to go too fast. And if you have a line, now it says using a line is better, but let me tell you, using a line is easier. It's not necessarily better. It's not going to help you with good buoyancy to have a line. You're going to be dependent on it. So we dive in places like Blue Grotto that have lines. I'm going to ask you to keep your hands off the lines because you really want to just get used to using your body to ascend and descend. So the buddy plan is really important. It's all about sharing and safety. You plan the dives together. You determine your depth, time, where you're going to turn around, what you're going to look at. You go over hand signals because not all hand signals are universal. And then we talk about what to do if you become separated. Have we gone over the what to do if you become separated? In the last lecture we did, what do you guys remember what it is?
Well, in this one, it was look for your buddy for 1 minute and then go to the surface.
Exactly. Look for 1 minute, skip the safety stop, do slowly ascend, and typically they're really actually close to you.
And look for bubbles.
Yes, and look for bubbles. Exactly. Look for bubbles.
And over that.
Good. All right, Victor, you ready? Okay.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Stop sharing then. Any questions so far? All right, moving on then. And I don't know if you remember this, Victor, but this is a build. So you're going to actually ask them. Okay.
Yes,
Got
exactly. It. So this was your last slide, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. So as Gabrielle was mentioning, you have to go through the hand signals because from place to place and even within agencies, there are slightly changes in the meaning of the hand signals. So let's go through the ones we have here. What are which is the signal? What is the signal for okay when you are underwater? I want you to do it in front of your camera for us. Yeah, so this is okay underwater. And when someone gives you an okay, you have to give the okay back. That's another rule, okay? So if I ask you like, you are okay, you have to say, yes, I'm okay. If you don't okay back, I start to think that something is wrong with you, okay? You're not paying attention, you have some anxiety. So we're gonna try to pay a little bit more attention to you. So make sure that you give your okay back. Okay, and now what's the okay sign for the surface? Yes, very good. So surface on the surface, once you do your entry and your surface, you just do the okay sign, which is your feet on top of your head, okay? Very good. I don't know what it's not showing, maybe it's behind this picture. Okay, what happens or how do you signal if you have problems equalizing your ears? Okay, yeah, so something is wrong and you point to my ear. All right, very good.
So just so you know, Victor,
Mhm.
what you do is you go through each of these and then you show the pictures and they're going to tell you what they are.
Okay, good.
So that's how the build works. Okay.
Good. Good. I still need to
Yeah.
get
So you
familiar
go
with
through
this
each
slide.
of them and then you put the picture up and they say, okay, son, underwater and so on.
All right, all right. So I already gave him 4 of them. All right, so what's the signal to hold this depth? If we reach the or plant bottom depth, what's the signal to hold that depth? Yeah. So with one hand, or especially with 2 hands, we just say like this is the level to this depth. Very good. Body up. Ronnie brought that early in the presentation today. Yeah, so where's your body or body up? Find your body and stay with him or her. Low of air. This is a signal that is not commonly used, okay? Low on air is with your fist across your chest, okay? But as I said, usually it's not to, use.
Yeah,
One
let
of
me
the-
tell you, the only place that I've ever seen it used is the Georgia Aquarium. In all my years of diving, thousands of dives, I've been diving since I was 17 years old. I've only ever seen it in the Georgia Aquarium. Nobody in real life does this because what does it mean to you? Does it mean 500 PSI? Does it mean 1,000? Does it mean 200? I'd rather know how many.
Yeah. Okay, and then how do you signal out of air? Out of air. Very good. So you put your palm down across your throat. Very good. And then up, or let's ascend. Let's go up. Okay, it's like and so some people confuse this one with okay. It looks like okay, or it's cool, but this is okay. Let's go up instead. Okay, and then when we go down, it's just the finger pointing down. Okay, if you have your regulator, you don't say or go down. No, you point down. This is descent. And what's the signal for help or distress? Yes, so that one on the surface with both hands. So you're not saying hi, you're just saying help, I'm in distress, I need to.
Or wearing a mask on your head, right?
There you go. That's
Yeah.
right. And then don't forget the cool sign.
Yeah, when
Right.
something is cool.
Instead of saying it's cool, don't do that. Do that. Cool.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so let's do a short review here. So what is this signal?
Okay, underwater.
Okay, underwater. Yeah.
Okay, underwater. Well, I can move that one. So which one is this one? What it looks like. Unmute yourself. Remember to mute yourself.
Isn't this the ascend? No, no.
No, they're
we
at
go
the
over this
surface
one?
and they're
Guessing that
waving.
they're saying
They're waving at the surface. What do you think it is?
Oh,
Oh,
Yes.
Okay, so this is help. Yeah, it can be a little bit confusing. It also looks like when, as Gabrielle was saying, when you are ascending, you have your hand up and you're doing the 360 turn to make sure there's nothing on the surface and everything is okay around you. And they're breaking the water with their hand as they ascend as well. It looks like that as well. What is this one? What this signal means?
Ear problem?
Ear problems. Yeah, so something is wrong with my ears, or I have pain in my ears. What is this one?
this depth.
Hold this depth, or this is the depth that we need to stay. Okay, this one.
find your buddy.
Find your body or body up. Okay, very good. And this one.
Out of air.
Out of air.
This is low on air.
Yeah, this is low on air. Okay, but usually we will be asking you to check your gauge frequently. Okay, so the signal to let us know how much air you have is this one. So we're gonna put 2 fingers to our palm, and that means read your gauge and tell me your the pressure you have in your cylinder. Okay, and then you just reply one number at a time. For example, 2, 1, 2, 3,000. So that's 2,000, 2, and this is 0. Where is the camera here? Okay. If it's 1,500, so it's 1,500, and so on. Okay. We want to make sure you get used to check your gauge frequently. Very good. And this one, I think this is the last one.
Out of air.
This is out of air. Okay, so when you are out of air, you do the signal. And finally,
Ascend.
ascend. Let's go up to the surface. Very good. So ascending is the decision to end the dive. What you do is you exchange the hand signal to start ascending. You check your gauge to make sure you have enough air for the ascent and the safety stop. And we skip that one, but we have another signal to do the safety stop, and we're going to talk about this, which is 3 minutes at this level, or some other people would say like 3 minutes with the palm in on top of the 3. Okay, so that's 3 minutes safety stop, or 3 at this level. Okay, you will be diving with people doing either one. So check your gauge, begin your ascent at the rate, which is 30 feet per minute, and vent your BC. So when we say put air on your BCD, it doesn't mean that you are going to press and hold your power inflator. It's just a small steps. We're going to, all the time where we're diving, everything is just slow. We never hold the BCD and fill it out, because you're going to get very buoyant. And we don't want that, because that is very dangerous if we ascend too quickly to the surface. Okay. Track your body while you're ascending. Do your safety stop for 3 minutes at between 20 and 10 and 20 feet deep. You do this 3 minutes safety stop. Okay.
And
then,
ideally 15 feet is what we teach. So 15 feet is what we teach.
okay, yeah.
So if you are going to stagger, ideally it would be between 15 and 20 feet.
Good. Okay, so 15 feet for 3 minutes. And finally, we surface, as we mentioned, your arm and hand on top, doing the 360 as you break the surface. Then you get positive buoyant as once you reach the surface, you're gonna orally inflate your BC and switch to snorkel. If the conditions on the surface are not the right ones, then you can use your power inflator to get positive buoyant, and you can keep your regulator in your mouth and swim back to, for example, the boat. Okay, so the conditions is what are gonna give you what exactly you're gonna do. All right, so here we see the couple of divers just doing their ascent. To exit the water, and we're going to practice this during the pool session as well, is always remove your fins, put them one on each hand, keep your mask in place, your regulator or snorkel in your mouth, and then you climb up the ladder. All right, never remove your mask, especially putting in your forehead. That's you know, we will try to keep out your mask if you do that. Okay, we're going to call your attention. Some other initial stressors is when the equipment presents some problems because it is heavy. for example, confining wetsuits or losing the equipment, it can, give you some stress. For example, if you lose your weight belt, as Gabrielle was mentioning, the malfunction of the equipment, and this is especially if you don't take good care and do a good maintenance of your equipment, it can have some malfunctions. So do a body check prior to your diving, as we said, maintain your equipment, and send it to service with a professional in service. Never try to do it yourself, okay? Also, especially during the first dive, you will feel that your task loader, and that's totally normal, okay? Because there are so many things that you will have to check, and just make sure to relax, think through, ask questions, especially during your pre-dive check. Go through everything, be mindful of what you're doing, and just follow the instructions, and you're gonna be okay, all right? Now, when there's a low visibility, this is a specialty, okay? We offer also a specialty for low visibility and night dive. We recommend after you complete your open water diving certification, you can take other specialty, as Ronny mentioned, nitrox, and low visibility and night diving is another different specialty. So it is important to do that, because in some areas the visibility can just change very quickly, and you want to make sure to know what to do. There are some other physical threats, but remember that it may or may not be real. So your mind is gonna play a lot of games to you, and even when I go underwater, I dive a lot in the Gulf, and sometimes you have that feeling there's something behind me or something chasing me, and that's totally normal. But then when you're concentrating what you're doing, there's most of the time, I would say 99.9%, there's never anything threatening you around, okay? Perhaps the biggest threat is going to be for some divers, their ego. So remember, if you are diving with experienced divers, don't think that, oh no, I'm a diver, I only have 3 dives, but I have experience, I can do this. No, you need a special training. So just dive up to your capacities and to your training and to your certification level, okay? Avoid that ego. Don't let your ego, because it clouds your best judgment, and when you take a bad decision while diving, is not a good thing. And that's a position you don't want to get. Get the training for the type of diving you want to do. If you want to do a cave, or if you want to do caverns, or if you want to do deep diving or night diving or drift diving or decompression dive or extended range, then get certified in those specific specialties. All right. So how do you respond, or how the body responds to increased stress, or a heart rate increase, or respiration as well? So we're going to consume more air. Or perception sometimes is going to be narrow, so we're only going to focus on specific things, and then we forget about the rest, and that's not good. And that's a big danger of failure to excel if the problem is not solved. And as we said, there's 3 main rules, and one of there is not to hold your breath while diving. So we don't want to get into that situation. So in this picture, which one do you think is a stress diver?
The one on the left.
The one on the left. And why do you think that?
The bubbles.
The bubbles.
Yeah, so it's a lot of bubbles. It means like it's breathing pretty heavily, and it's breathing too fast. Okay, so when you see these type of signals, you know that diver is stressed. It might be one thing, or it might be a combination of things that have that diver stress. So we have to come close, try to calm down the diver to make sure that diver continues enjoying the activity. And as I said, rarely is only one problem. So you have to try to solve every small situation, even if it's that small, you think it's not important. you have to do it, because as they add different situations or problems, then they can become a big problem, and you don't want to be in that position. So little problems are not solved, can lead to bigger problems that may overwhelm us. And then panic can set in, and we don't want to get into panic. And why we don't want to get into panic? Because panic is the point where all logic and mental control is lost. And we only want to flight or fight. And that means if, for example, you feel like you can't breathe, and if you are at 30 or 50 feet deep, people wants to just surface. And that's a big risk to take. Okay, so we don't want to get into panic because that's very, very dangerous. In diving, panic is not an option. So, and I remember when I was trained, my original instructor used to say, what happens down there has to be solved down there. Okay, and this is exactly what panic is not an option means. So everything is about prevention. Again,
Victor?
Sure.
Yeah, I got you.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. So prevention, like Victor was just talking about, we want to dive your plan, or plan your dive and dive your plan. This is something we will tell you all the time. So one of the first things we'll have you do when we go out to do the checkout dives is we'll tell you, hey, this is what the place looks like. We want to, go diving for this long. What is our dive going to look like? What are the limits for what we can do at this dive site? So you have a responsibility to yourself, your buddy, other divers, and non-diving public. Obviously the first and foremost, the most common is like your dive buddy. That's who you're going to be interacting with the most. So you really need to make sure not only do you know your equipment, you need to know their equipment as well. Because if there is an emergency and you need to handle something on their equipment, you now need to know how it works. Like I was saying before with the HSA divers, I had no idea how their equipment worked. I never worked with that kind of stuff before. And honestly, I think that they didn't even have a lot of experience of working with their secondary and auxiliary gear and equipment. There was one point at which we were doing buddy breathing because my buddy didn't have an octopus. So we had to do shared air, actually, not even buddy breathing. We had to do shared air, which is even more difficult than buddy breathing. So buddy breathing, that octopus that I was talking about before, that's what you typically give them. We had to share his regulator. The problem was he gave me his regulator upside down. I inhaled a ton of water. I started choking and freaking out because I'm underwater. So, this is one of those things you have to not only know your own gear, you have to know their gear, and you have to know how to handle stressful situations. So if something happens, your buddy causes something to happen, that you're going to be able to handle it, keep yourself safe and keep them safe. Gabrielle, unfortunately, has many stories where she's had to take the lead to make sure not only she's safe, but to make sure that other people are safe, potentially even hurting her in the situation. And that's a very important conversation to have, absolutely. I'm sure we will hear about that situation. So non-diving publics, like we were saying, there is other people besides your dive buddy that you're going to need to be keeping track of. And that's part of the reason we do the hand above the head as we come up. That's part of the reason we do the 360. You don't know who else is going to be there. When we go diving at Big Blue, there's a lot of partiers that get there as we're finishing our dives. So if you're not paying attention, you might run into a broke propeller. You might run into a snorkeler. You might run into a child. You just never know what's going to be above you. There could even be turtles, alligators, who knows? Doubtful, but it could happen. More likely at Blue Grotto, but that's just a soft shell, nothing scary. So keep track of your environment. That's why we have you look around. That's why we have you go slow. This is why we tell you safety first above all else. So fitness to dive. This is something that I know everyone at the pool session had experience with. I don't think a lot of people spend quite as much time in the pool, swimming around, as much as you'd expect. So diving requires physical and emotional fitness to dive. However, we believe diving is 40% physical and 60% mental. I think that goes kind of hand in hand with my situation. You know, I don't have use of my legs. I'm a T10 vertebra complete injury, meaning I have no sensation below my top of my hips, essentially. But even despite that, I have no problems diving. I pretty much have never had problems diving, minus a couple issues here and there that are super easy to fix. So usually what ends up stopping people from diving is fear, trauma, phobias, anxiety, depression, a whole slew of mental issues that will keep you from diving far more than the physicality of it. I would say like the hardest part is the underwater swim, but for those of you who already had the full session, you've already knocked it out. So we pretty much never had a student not be able to complete the swim test, especially with a little bit of practice. So when all else fails, stop, breathe, think, breathe, react. Super important. This helps. This applies to more than just scuba also. This applies to everything in life. If you can do this everywhere, you will be calmer, happier, and more in control of situations if you can do this. So stop what you're doing. Take a full breathing cycle. So one of the things that Gabrielle talks about a lot is, at least on the surface, square breathing. So I can't remember the numbers. I think it's
4-7-8 breathing. Dr.
4,
Andrew
7.
Wiles 4-7-8 breathing. Do you mind if I share real quick?
Yes,
of what
absolutely.
to do? Yeah, so it's a really great stress relieving technique. And when people are in the water and they're stressed, I can tell right away if they're stressed. And so when you're stressed and you're on scuba, you're going to hold air in your lungs and you're not going to be able to descend. So this is a common problem with new divers because they're stressed out. Excuse all my foster kittens, by the way, they're crawling all over me. But so what I teach, and I actually teach this to my leadership clients, and I find it very relevant to divers at the surface, not underwater, at the surface, do this technique before you start diving. Even when you're in your car and you're stressed or you're going into a stressful situation, it's been shown to reduce your blood pressure, your heart rate. It's a calming technique. You're going to breathe in for a count of 4, hold for a count of 7, release for a count of 8. The first couple times you do it, you're going to feel a little bit lightheaded because you're breathing out more than you're breathing in, but it really does help. So count with me, breathe with me when I tell you to. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, release, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we just did 2 cycles. What you're going to do anytime you're stressed is do 4 cycles of it. You can see it doesn't take a lot of time and it really does help you down. Whose doggy's barking?
Was me.
That's great. My dog's in the background barking too. I think he's trying to talk to deer or something outside.
Glad he did so well at the Boy Scout meeting. That was awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Really
So for anyone who doesn't know, we do all kinds of really, really cool volunteer stuff. And so Ronny and I on Monday went to a Boy Scout meeting. We were invited to speak there. And Ronny was an Eagle Scout himself at age 15. And so he really connected with the kids. And we're actually going to be teaching this Boy Scout troop. We're going to be teaching 15 members of this Boy Scout troop how to scuba dive. So yeah, so that's going to be fun. And I know Victor has all kinds of plans for Perry to work with kids there too. So it's awesome. But yeah, Ronny obviously brought his service dog, and I brought my dog too. And they were both big hits with the kids and the kids' parents. So, but we do a ton of volunteer work. And so if anyone is interested, even as a brand new diver, even as a diver who's not yet certified, we have a lot of opportunities, including Rotary Youth Camp for kids with special needs. We have Family Cafe coming up in Orlando. It's the largest conference for people with disabilities and their families. It's free to attend, and they can come in the pool and get a scuba experience with us. And it really is life-changing for a lot of people. So we encourage you to come volunteer with us sometime. All right, Ronny, back to you. Sorry about that.
No, great. Yeah, Rotary Youth Camp and Family Cafe are incredible events. I highly recommend anyone that has time to go to them to do so, even if you can only help out on land. I've gone a couple times and only helped out on land. It's totally worth it, honestly. But yeah, so the breathing cycle is actually a very useful grounding technique. Anyone that suffers from anxiety or anything like that, this is a really common technique that they'll teach you to ground yourself. So then next, after stopping, taking a full breathing cycle, you want to think about what you need to do. Take another breath. So go through that cycle one more time, and then take action by reacting to the stressor. So the reaction. This is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Solve it underwater if possible. I know it's not fun. I really didn't want to do it, but you kind of have to in a lot of circumstances. A lot of circumstances, you will not have the option of just bolting to the surface or something like that, or you will hurt yourself by doing so. So solve it underwater if possible. And this is why one of the things that we tell you is this is not a race. We are not racing anyone. We are not competing against each other. We're not challenged. We're the only challenge is against yourself. So we want to go slow, safely, and calmly with everything from breathing to swimming to diving. But yes, we want to solve any problems that we have underwater if possible. So obviously, if you're already at the surface and you're about to go diving, you want to solve the problem before diving. And we can teach you a couple of techniques for regs and things of that nature that will most commonly malfunction at the surface. Abort or cancel the dive if necessary. Like we were saying before, safety first before anything. If you're having sickness or any kind of issues, medical issues or anything like that, anything that would really hinder your capabilities of diving, or if anything's painful. If anything's painful, absolutely cancel the dive. There's no reason to be injured or hurt yourself while diving. Divers should respect each other's decisions. So you're working with buddies, you're working with other people, and people have off days and people have pain and things that are going on in their own lives. So it just has to be respectful to each other, be kind and compassionate to one another and to yourselves as well. So much easier than doing a rescue. This is very important. This is why we were saying solve it on the surface if possible. If you can see a problem beforehand and can fix it before it's an issue, that's always preferable. And that goes for the mentality as well. If you see someone having anxiety or pressure or stress of any kind, it's better to address it with them. Do it in a kind, tactful way. But talking about like, hey, what's going on, or checking on one of the things that dive masters will, the leadership team will do is we'll come check up on your gear. And whatnot, double check your gear to make sure everything's set up. And that's something a buddy could absolutely do as well. So the panic cycle. So a problem begins to occur, leads to stress increasing. So then from here, you either have two options. If the diver stays in control, you can then recognize the stress, stop, breathe, think, breathe, react, and then assuming everything is good, your problem will be solved, assuming it can be solved. However, if you are not in control, this is where things can go out of whack very, very quickly. So perceptual narrowing is the first thing that's going to happen, tunnel vision kind of idea. Skills change. So you're going to start doing things that you weren't taught. You're going to start flailing. You're going to start kind of just going into it's a panic mode, but it's also like instinct almost. It's like you're just reacting, you're not thinking. And this is very important with the breathing and the stopping, because if you can stop it before you go full panic, you can control it. Whereas if you've already started to full on panic, it's very hard to pull back once you've started to panic. And I know that personally for sure. So obviously this is going to stress you out even more, make things even more difficult. You'll see people thrashing around in the water and stuff like that when they're like this. And they, not only can they hurt themselves, they can hurt you too, which is one of the things that we address in rescue, accident rescue, diver rescue and accident management. There we go. And then finally, we have panic and flight. So this is our biggest concern with anyone. We do not want you bolting to the surface. We do not want you freaking out, flailing, or panicking in any way. You know, there's situations that are new, that are going to be new to you with all of these situations. I think one of the most stressful ones easily is mask clearing. I think some of you kind of got to experience that in the pool on Saturday. Having your mask filled with water and still breathing, or not having a mask on at all and still breathing through your mouth, is not intuitive. And I've even seen some people go, you know, hold their nose to kind of like help them like get into the mentality of like, okay, breathe through the mouth, breathe through the mouth. Because yeah, it's something that you have to practice. And the more you practice, and this is something that we will tell you all the time, come diving with us whenever you can, whenever you want, whenever you have free time. We are happy to have you. We want you to be safe divers. I pretty much only go diving with Gabrielle. You know, I've had a couple opportunities here and there that I have taken, but overall, you know, the reason I do so is because I feel very safe with this group, and I hope you guys do too. So then this all kind of leads to a positive feedback loop, and then you are in a very dire situation. So I know it's easier said than done, but remain in control, stop, breathe, think, breathe, react. Okay, so what happens if you're starved for air? So first thing you want to do is stop swimming. What a lot of people don't realize is how much air they're holding on to when they're freaking out. So what Gabrielle was talking about earlier with weights, what she was really saying, and you'll see this, if not personally, you will see it in person with someone at the pool, almost guaranteed. Someone will be sitting at the surface. They'll be flailing, most likely, you know, kind of floss. You can tell that they're upset, whether through themselves or the situation or whatever. And they're just not happy, and they're kind of just sitting at that top, struggling to get down. Gabrielle will come over, grab their hand, and they'll just sink right down to the bottom. And she'll literally just right there, just grabs, sinks at the same time. So what's happening there is when you're struggling, when you're freaking out, when you're panicking, you're holding oxygen in your lungs, even if you don't realize it. Something that we will do with you at the pool, for those of you who have not been at the pool, we're going to have you, I mean, we can have you do it right now, frankly. So one of the things that we had everyone do at the pool was Gabrielle had everyone breathe out again, breathe out again. And you can do it multiple times. There's an incredible, your vital volume of your lungs is incredibly large. You do not use your entirety of your lungs when you're typically going around every day, you know, walking around. You know, maybe if you're a heavy, intense athlete, you're using more so than the average person, but the average person doesn't realize how much space there is in your lungs. So there's a lot of air there, really, you know, especially for like the swim test and stuff like that. We'll tell you, like, you know, just believe in yourself. You will make it. You can get a lot further than you think you can. But going back to starved for air. So first thing you want to do, stop swimming. So stop exerting yourself. Slow, deep breaths. So as opposed to the circular breathing that we were doing earlier, you just constant, regular breathing. You're not holding your breath at any point. You never hold your breath while scuba diving, ever, never hold your breath, always breathe. But slow breaths, in slow, out slow. You want to calm your panic down. Signal to your buddy. You know, we go over a couple of different exercises to deal with out of air emergencies, from dealing them with your buddy to dealing them with by yourself. But obviously the buddy is obviously the safest and preferred method, and why we always tell you to go diving with a buddy. We never go diving without one. Ascend to a shallower water. This works with other issues as well. So if you're having ear issues, mask squeeze, any kind of issues, especially with pressure, you can come up a little bit. And this also has to do with Boyle's law, actually, and how much pressure is on your cylinder. Ascending to a shallower depth will actually make it easier to pull a little bit of air from your cylinder. So one of the things Gabrielle always tells students is, if for some reason you run out of air at depth, which should never happen if you are a cognizant diver, if it does happen, keep that reg in your mouth. Keep it in your mouth, because as you ascend, some of that air might become more accessible from the decrease of pressure, and you might get just a little spurt of air or two left afterwards. But obviously we would much prefer you do a safety ascent with your buddy, which we will show you in the pool for those who have not seen it. Solving a leg cramp. This is one of the most common things that we do probably. So I don't have to do it, thankfully, but for those of you that do, you're going to be using your legs a lot in this class. So to solve it, first thing you want to do is you're going to slow your pace, stretch at the first sign. So one of the things that we can do is you can have your buddy come over, and you'll see Gabrielle do this a lot, especially in cold water. You tend to spasm a little bit more easily, and your muscles get a little tired more quickly. So we'll ask our buddies like, hey, I'm having a really bad leg cramp right now. Can you tip the fin up and massage the calf? So you literally if their hand or if their foot was sitting in my hand, and this was the top of the fin right here, you push the top of the fin towards their body, and then you can actually massage their calf muscle as well on top of the stretch. And that usually solves the issue. So like I was saying, you can also do this yourself. So this is also a form of self-rescue that you can do. So grasp the tip of your fin, you literally just kind of extend your foot out, grab the end of the fin and pull back towards you, keeping your legs straight.
Quick question. All right, so you would do like this and then into your leg to show a cramp, I would assume. What about with stress? Is there like a sign for like, I'm having anxiety and I need to it's just this?
Just do the same sign, but instead of pointing to your ear, just say, I'm not feeling it, something's up.
Okay.
Yeah.
We were like, well, we should come up with something like, I'm having anxiety and I just want to chill for a second.
Well, you could just do this and then say, okay,
Pause.
or hold this depth, or
Hold this
just
depth
sit
works too.
tight. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, something that you'll notice as you become more comfortable with scuba diving is it's going to be very apparent if someone else is stressed out, because it's all pretty easy. So, if something's going wrong, it's pretty apparent, and you will see it in their eyes more so than anything else. I've looked at students underwater and I know exactly how they're feeling, even though we can't say anything.
Yeah, big eyes, right, Ronny?
Exactly, whale eyes is what they call it. Yeah, wide-eyed, 1,000-yard stare. Kind of frantically looking around, or any of those kind of panic responses.
And the big old bubbles.
Yeah, heavy breathing. That's another big one.
Yeah.
Like tearing through their air, like running a marathon.
I'm less worried that he won't know and more worried that I'm going to feel like I still need to communicate it if I'm stressed.
Well, the really cool thing about couples is it's a great communication building technique. And so your relationship is going to strengthen if you're good dive buddies to each other. Okay. You're going to learn how to non-verbally communicate with each other. You're going to have each other's backs. It really is a great, it really is. I will tell him, listen, when we're in the pool next time, if I see him doing anything, I will call him out. Okay. I'll be like, you need to be a good dive buddy to her. Okay.
I hope so.
He's very perceptive. He's very, very perceptive. So
Good.
I think I'll want to communicate it more than he'll need to hear it.
You'll be fine, Megan. You'll be good.
So one of the things you can do is you can pick up a little bit of ASL, American Sign Language, and that actually does work very well underwater. Especially for naming animals and stuff like that. We often use the ASL equivalent of the animals to denote them. But yes, so this is also another reason that we tell you to always have a buddy. This is a lesser one, obviously. You're not going to be in any kind of danger because you got a cramp, but you're not going to be happy. It's not going to be fun. So having someone there to support you and get you through a difficult situation is really nice. It's always nice to have a buddy there, even if it's just to enjoy the dive together. So managing physical problems. So entanglement, we don't have a ton of issues with that here. I think probably most commonly
the jetties would be the most common places where
fishing lines.
Yeah.
So fishing line, fishing nets, maybe even like pots and stuff like that, like crustacean pots might be an issue depending on where you are, if you're not careful. But a big one's going to be like a kelp forest and stuff like that if you go out west or anywhere to the Pacific. So, obviously, that would be something that you would bring a dive knife for, not, fighting off some animal that doesn't want anything to do with you. So that's the one of the managing physical problems. So self-assistance, that would be a knife. Buddy assistance, you can literally, and we do this all the time, buddies will get tripped up in the cords or the lines, whether it's blue grotto, boat diving, or anything like that. There's just ropes and lines laying around pretty often with scuba diving. So sometimes you get a little knot on your cylinder or something like that. And this is one of those times it really helps to not panic. If you start, and I've heard about cave divers doing this, cave divers who will get caught up in their lines and panic and hurt themselves, sometimes fatally. Obviously that's not going to be an issue with us, but remain calm. Let us come to you if you're really tangled, and we will get you untangled. But yeah, we've never had a problem ever. The only time I've had to assist someone with entanglement with fish friends. So streamlining, this is something that will take a little bit of practice, but you will move through the water easier with better streamlining. So one of the things we'll really stress to you, we started going over it at the pool, but really you're not gonna really get the hang of it until you start doing dives. You start doing your checkout dives. So we have a very particular setup. We have certain things over our arms, certain things under our arms, clips in certain places, D-rings, cummerbunds, all kinds of things to help keep all of our gear nice and close to us. And I think there were some photos from last class that showed you how streamlining can affect scuba divers. I would say the hardest one to figure out how to streamline is your gauge, but that just takes a little bit of practice of figuring out how to, clip it, where to clip it, and all that kind of stuff, and you'll get the hang of it really easy. So if loss of buoyancy. So if this is one of the things that Gabrielle's talking about when doing boat entries and stuff like that, very common for people to lose their weight system. And especially if you're overweighted, as soon as you drop that weight, you're going to come shooting back up to the surface. However deep you are, you're going to have that much more acceleration. So dump air from your BC if you suddenly lose your weight system. This is to get rid of all of the air and buoyancy that you have. Flare yourself, literally flare your body out during ascent to slow you down even more. And then breathe. This is a very easy situation to panic in. We don't want you holding your breath. That is the number one rule we have with scuba diving, especially while ascending. Do not hold your breath. Do not ever hold your breath while scuba diving. And when you're stressed out, when other things are happening and you're task loaded and stuff like that, it's hard to remember. But that's why when we're in the pool, we will test you several times. We will come, if we don't see you blowing bubbles when that regulator is not in your mouth, we're going to tell you multiple times to do so. And we might even tap you and bubbles. We might tell you to blow bubbles. So power inflator sticks open. So what you would do is hold the vent button open to allow the excess air out, though a lot of them also have dump systems that automatically start dumping once they're overinflated. You're going to disconnect the hose. This is one of the things that we're going to teach you during the emergency portion of our scuba sessions in the pool. And then if the inflator doesn't work, this is why we also do this during the pool session, for those of you who were there. Orally inflate. We want you to know that you can use the power, you can use the inflator without the power function of it. And then as a last ditch case, we really don't recommend you do this because there's a lot more safer ways to ascend. But if you are in an absolute emergency situation in which you needed to get to the surface, as soon as possible for whatever reason, emergency, drop your weights and that will give you a positive ascent. But again, that is not something we recommend. Equipment's expensive, it's dangerous, and it's very stressful. So this is another one of the reasons that we always work with buddies. If you have any problems at all, your buddy should be there to help you. You'll see us holding students down from, shooting up to the surface or rocketing to the floor or anything like that. So, you know, just be there for your buddy, whatever the situation might be. So out of air emergencies, this is what I was just mentioning. So have you checked your gauge lately? This is something we're going to ask you several times. So when we give you that sign, we want you to tell us your pressure back. That way we know where you're at. You should always come to the surface with a minimum of 500 PSI, minimum. Any less than that, that's kind of bad form. That's bad practice for recreational scuba diving. So this is something we will ask you frequently. So some out of air emergency alternatives, and we go over these in the pool as well. So first and foremost, we have octopus breathing. This is the easiest one. This is when you work with your buddy. They, you know, so the book teaches you, give them your regulator, you take your octopus. However, in our class, we teach you the opposite. So because we already have the reg in our mouth, we just keep it there. You pull the octo and you hand it, you hold it and you hand it to your buddy. And then they can breathe off of it. Then you guys will swim together to safety, your safety stop, a place, whatever is needed. So this is the #1 out of air alternative that we use. This is the one that we practice the most, especially with COVID. So the other one we don't practice as much since COVID, except for people who are in the same household. So if you are in the same household with someone, we will have you practice this in the pool and on certifying dives. So buddy breathing, this is the other form of breathing that I was talking to you about. So instead of giving them your alternative air supply and letting them have your octo, you literally hold on to your reg. You don't let go of it. You take a couple breaths, 2 breaths, you pass it. They take 2 breaths, pass it back, 2 breaths. And you do not let go of it, because if they were to panic or something were to happen and they were to ruin your regulator, now you were both out of air. That is a very dangerous situation, obviously, if both your buddies are out of air. So this is a little more stressful because you really have to stay. Remember how we were talking about how close do you need to be to your buddy? For this skill, you have to be real close. You're basically right on top of each other, going pretty much to the surface or to the safest, you know, exit as soon as possible. So then one of the other things that we mentioned at the beginning of this lecture was backup scuba unit. So those pony bottles or entirely separate units. Sometimes they even have safety divers, depending on how technical of a diving and stuff like that you're doing. But obviously we aren't going to be using that for recreational. This is no decompression diving. So independent alternatives, emergency swimming ascent. So if for whatever reason, your buddy is not near you, is not around you, is not paying attention, whatever's going on, they're not available. An emergency swimming ascent is when you're still going to be safe. You still want to make sure you're not going to run into anyone. You still want to make sure you're breathing out while making an ascent, because holding air while ascending is very dangerous, very dangerous. So emergency swimming ascent, this is literally just swimming. That's all you're doing. You're not changing your buoyancy. You're not messing with anything. You're just a controlled swim to the surface. Make sure you're not getting injured. And then finally, the last one that I mentioned where you drop your weights is a positive buoyant ascent. This is an absolute last case scenario. And, you know, like I said, usually for most of us, we're using integrated weights, we're using low weights. This should never be something you need to do. That's only if you're wearing like 15, 20 pounds. And obviously you're not gonna be able to get up, you know, your inflator stops working with 20 pounds on you. Yeah, you're gonna hit the floor. So, you know, in that case, this is one of the reasons we really want you to be a good diver. We want you to be a safe diver. We don't want you 15 pounds to get to the bottom and sit there the whole time. That's not what we want. So what I was mentioning earlier, location of octopus regulator. This is not standardized. It is standardized for us because Gabrielle will give, will lend you a octopus holder to use during class and for the checkout dives. So it will literally be around your neck. It is a silicone thing that holds it around your neck. It is right there. So you have your regulator in your mouth and you have your octo right there. It's very convenient. Actually, when I started drowning in the HSA mishap from the regulator being upside down, I actually pushed his reg away when it happened, immediately grabbed my octo and put it up to my mouth because it's right in your vision. It's very easy to see. It's very intuitive. And the reason I say that is because there are a lot of different ways to hold an octo. So here you can see this person has a clip. It is very easily accessible. It is in a very obvious place. However, there is a little bit of distance, a little more distance between halfway down your chest versus right on your neck, right where you expect it to be. And especially something like this is not very easily accessible. This is quite far away, and especially if you're panicking, or if you have other stuff attached to your legs, like a dive knife or something like that, or who knows what else, you might get distracted or confused, or you might knock it off of that holder and not even realize it. There's just a lot of things that can go wrong. The further it is from your immediate grasp or mouth, the more difficult it's going to be, which is another one of the reasons we really don't like the integrated octopus. There's just so many reasons we really don't like it. It just makes a lot of the skills that we're showing you right now significantly more difficult. So out of air octopus use, the diver is going to signal low on air, then out of air. Your buddy is going to offer the primary regulator, then picks up the octopus. So this is what I was telling you about the book. This is according to the book's standards. You give them your regulator because you know it works, and then you take the octopus according to the book. We keep the reg in our mouth, especially with COVID and everything like that. It's just an additional safety measure against transmission and stuff like that. You keep the regulator that you've had in your mouth. You should have already checked the octo before we went into the water from the first place. So you should know that that's working. You should be able to take that off, hand it to them. Also, one of the really nice things about Gabrielle's octos, which is not the case with most octos, something that I need you guys to understand. Gabrielle's octos work both directions. It doesn't matter which way it goes. However, everywhere else, pretty much everywhere else, especially internationally, if you have an octo, the yellow side must be up. Just like I was talking about how I almost drowned because that guy gave me his reg upside down, you're going to drown yourself if you try to put that octo in upside down and it's not an octo that is reversible. So that is something that you should absolutely be aware of.
So
and let's just clarify, drowning versus inhaling water slightly different. So you will inhale water and it won't be fun, but hopefully drowning isn't going to be part of it.
Just
Megan,
feels like it, not actually.
Yeah. It's good to stress that though. Megan, you had a question?
Yeah, so if we're tested on an exam, what is the correct answer? Give the regulator or give the octopus?
So for the exam, we're going to have you follow the book.
That's why we always tell you the book says, yeah. I don't.
So we're going to have you do this.
That's not a test question, but yeah. The entering the water backward might be a test question though. We just don't do that here. We don't have big waves.
Yeah. Very common in the Gulf of Mexico. So like I was saying before, here's someone, a buddy team, octopus breathing, and then making a controlled ascent. One of the things that you can see that they're kind of addressing, when you're connected to someone else, your buoyancy is even more important. So if you're flying all over the place and unable to control yourself, it's going to make your dive partners, your dive buddies situation a lot more difficult. And then, so just like we were talking about earlier, you're going to signal out of air. You're going to buddy breathe. So this is where you hand it back and forth. So 2 breaths on one person, 2 breaths on the other person, back and forth until you make it to a safe ascent. Always exhale when the regulator is out of your mouth. So like I said, we'll do this, and that means blow bubbles, if we're underwater. And sometimes I'll even take my reg or snorkel out and I will blow bubbles myself. So if you see me blowing bubbles for some strange reason, that's because I want you to do it. Okay, and then the independent strategies. Air is out, buddy is too far away for whatever reason. You're going to begin an emergency swimming ascent. This is not changing your buoyancy at all, not messing with the inflator, just swimming towards the surface in a safe, controlled manner. Exhale continues while breathing attempts. So this is another, like we were saying with the bubbles, as you're coming up, we want you to keep that reg in your mouth if you were alone, because you might get that little bit of extra spurt of air as the pressure releases off of the cylinder. So all else has failed. This is your last ditch effort. You can see this person taking off their weight belt, ditching their weight belt, and then making a positive ascent, positive buoyant ascent. Notice that they still have that arm above their head. They're still going to turn to make sure they're not injuring themselves or anyone else on their way back up. And then out of air emergencies, which one would you choose? I think I made it pretty apparent. I would hope so. So obviously we want you guys doing the buddy breathing preferentially. Octopus breathing. We want you to do the octopus breathing, buddy breathing only if, something happened to your octopus or the person doesn't have an octopus. And again, this is another one of the reasons that we always dive with a buddy. And then out of air emergencies, remember the deeper the dive, the faster you use air. Which law does this use?
Is it still
Boyle's law?
blue?
It is.
Okay, I was like, I didn't think they'd ask about it twice.
I know, right? We're gonna have to
Sounds
throw
like it's
some
Boyle's.
curveballs in there that are not Boyle's law.
It's definitely the most important law we go over, though. Obviously Dalton's is important too because of the partial pressures, and Henry's for dissolving gases and whatnot. But as far as how much it interacts with the diving physics, I would say Boyle's is the one you will see most frequently, which is why we ask most questions about it. And then, like I said before, we have a margin of error, margin of safety. So on deck with 500 minimum. We never want you coming up with less, and that's a safety thing. So time to go, and you give your buddy the signal. You can let them know that you're low on air, and that's why you need to end it. But you should have an understanding buddy as well.
And just to clarify, that's for open water dives. If we're in the pool, you can go a little bit below 500. It's okay. We want to know when you're at 500, but it's not going to be a bad thing if you get down to 100 before we have a chance to change your cylinder. Okay.
All right. And then managing emergencies. So be prepared. Take first aid, CPR, and oxygen provider. This is something that all the dive masters do, and obviously everyone above that as well. We also recommend, we have multiple classes for safety and more advanced diving. Nitrox is one of the big ones that we recommend once people feel comfortable with their open water, because there's a lot of benefits to nitrox diving, which we can talk about later, I'm sure. So we have a DRAM class. So this is the Divers Rescue and Accident Management class that I was talking about. We are actually having one tomorrow. Yeah, we're having one tomorrow. So that'll be a great time. So like I said, diver rescue and accident management. And then recognizing serious injury.
I think I take it from here.
Sweet.
All right. So we have seen that the risk to suffer an accident can be from very low, and then there are other type of accidents that can be very serious. It can cause very serious injuries. The most important, and this is one of the main rules of diving, is the decompression illness. And in some cases, some people will refer to them as bands. And that's because after the symptoms appears, people tends to, like bend their body because of the pain. But that's not the proper term to use. We still will refer to it as a decompression illness. And that one, and then we have embolism, which is more referred to a physical accident. So it's when the air goes into your bloodstream, and then of course can cause the different type of situations. So some of the signs and symptoms, you will have joint pain, visual problems, cough and shocks, and it will progressively get worse. It can cause unconsciousness, and you will have lower breathing, a lot of sight, bloody froth, and even your heart can stop. So as you can tell, being under these type of accidents, it can be really serious. We don't want to get on that, and that's why we talk about it all the time, because you need to be not only aware, but to practice, to adopt the best practices to avoid the risk to be on decompression's illness. Also, marine, we can suffer if we're in the ocean. Marine life can cause different injuries like stings, or cuts, abrasions, and punctures, depending on what type of marine life you're facing. So the first thing of how you manage that accident situation is just the safety of the scene. So if you're, for example, near a jellyfish, a stinging jellyfish, just try to avoid that area, for example. Then you have to follow the ABCs, or the basic of life support. Check on the injuries, call emergency management services, and follow the emergency protocols for that Ronny was mentioning. We go through all the specific in the dive accident and rescue training. Try to remain calm and reassure to the person who's being injured. In some cases, the use of hot water will help release part of the situation, or vinegar can also help in the case of stings, can help relieve the pain of the stings. Sometimes, if the case is necessary, you will need to get involved with medical assistance. Wait a second. Okay, then how do we call for help? First, we need to recognize that there's the need to call for help. Is the injured so severe that we are not capable of really solving that situation? Then we know that we need to call for help. Rescue, and then begin the first aids if you are capable to do so. And then when the medical help arrives, takes the injured person will be taken to a trauma center. Always dial 911, and you will need to describe different aspects of the person who is being involved in the injury, like age, sex, where it's located, the condition, symptoms, the location of the injury, and so on. Using cell phone and stay online and provide your full location. And as a recommendation, we all, as professional divers, we are covered under the Dive Alert Network, or DAN insurance. So there is a direct hotline where you can call and explain what's going on, and they can take you through the steps that you should follow to make sure that you provide the proper care. Again, dive planning, that's one of the most important things. So there are some planning factors when you plan your dive, like how you feel, how's the weather, and do you need to travel or not, or how's the climate there? Are you diving, for example, to Canada, or you're going to the Caribbean? So you need to be aware of those factors. You as a diver, before the dive, are you in good conditions? You're qualified, you're apprentice, are you qualified to do the dive that you're planning? So please always dive within your certification and capacities. Some advanced plannings will include why, who, where, when, or how you're diving, okay? And those are important questions to ask yourself when you're going through the planning phase. And the preparation, always make sure you know your equipment, you know your body, you trust your body, you communicate with your body, and you agree in that plan, in the dive plan. Okay, on site, always check for the weather and the conditions because they can change very quickly. And make sure to follow your dive profile when you do your plan. If you have said this is the depth and this is the time, follow your dive profile. And we're gonna go through that later in this lecture. Okay, now I want all of you to have your dive tables handy, okay? Because we're gonna check on them, okay? This is our one of the most important tools. And when you get advanced, you might be able to start working with computers, but for us, it's very important if the computer fails that you know how to plan a dive based on your tables. It's always going to be safer as we go through the dive tables. Gabrielle, is there anything you want to say?
It's possible that a couple of new people may not have these yet.
All right.
This is the introductory part. So just maybe go through it. And for those who have it, they can follow along. And for those who don't, they can do this later along with the video. So
good. Yeah. Thanks. So each agency will have a different type of dive table. If you compare PADI, SSI, NAWI, SEI tables, the configuration is about the same, but the tables themselves might have different not shape, but a little bit of change in the content. But anyway, we're gonna use our official SEI table, which is the one here. We're gonna start in the top part of the table, or table A. Table A is for a single dive. So here we will have the depth that we're planning to dive, if we know the depth that we're diving. And then we have the following column will show us the maximum non-stop time. So this number here is exactly the same number at the end of that row for that depth. So for example, here, if we go to 50 feet, this right here, do you see my pointer? So for 50 feet, the max not decompression time is 80 minutes. Okay, so at the end of this row, we're going to see 80. In between, we see all these different numbers. Those represent minutes of the time we're planning to dive. So for 50 minutes, for example, if we dive for 50 feet, sorry, if we dive 50 minutes, then this is the one that we will select. But if it's a single dive, we don't have to plan too much. Well, we still need to do some planning, of course. But what I try to mean is what I mean is that we don't have to worry too much, and our only concern is not to go over these limits. Remember, recreational diving is a non-decompression dive. It means that we don't go further of these limits, time limits. Okay, but then, for example, we have table B is the one right under that table A. That table B is what we call the surface interval time, or SIT, in hours and minutes. So all these boxes here will show us two numbers. For example, 0, 10 means 10 minutes, and 0.52 is 52 minutes. So if we stay at the surface within 10 and 52 minutes, we're gonna consider this box. And that's because when you finish your first dive, you're gonna end in what we call a dive group. So these letters are the dive group. And as you use that surface interval time, you can stay in the same group, or you can change the group because you are releasing more of the nitrogen. Remember, these tables were made to make sure that the nitrogen that you are accumulating in your tissues have time enough to be released in a safe way. Okay, so this surface time, as you stay in the surface, you are still outgassing, you're releasing that excess of nitrogen in your tissues through your breathing. And then the longer you stay on the surface, the lower the levels of, or the lower the concentration of nitrogen, then you will go up on these other groups. Okay, so for your repetitive group, then you can stay in the same, or you can be in a lower repetitive group for that one. Okay, so table B, surface, what we call also surface credit. And then we have table C, the one at the bottom left, okay, which is our residual nitrogen time, or R&T, and that's in minutes. So all the values right here in this table is minutes. The row on the top is the depth. Now it's depth. For example, here we have 35, 40 feet, 45 feet, 50 feet, and so on, okay, to 130. And the smallest number under that is in meters, all right? And then the rest of the boxes is just minutes. And it has two numbers. If we see down here and the bottom left corner, we see that the upper number is the minutes of residual nitrogen. That means that for your next dive, you need to add that amount of minutes to your planned dive, because this is just like you already dived. I'm sorry, because Gabrielle correct that. It's not, it's dived. That amount of time. So if in my second dive, I'm going again to 50 feet for 20 minutes, and then taking this example of this box here, if I'm planning to go 50 feet for 20 minutes, and I have a 37 minutes residual nitrogen time, I need to add these 37 minutes to the 20 minutes that I'm planning. So my real bottom time in this case is going to be 57 minutes, but I'm going to be diving 20 minutes. So this is just for the planning. And we will do, it sounds a little bit strange, but when we go through the exercises, you will really understand this much better. And then once we have these numbers, we can go back to our table A and continue. And that's a loop. If we are going to do 2 dive or 3 dive or 4 dive, we go over and back to this table A, B, and C. Okay. One of the things that we do is what is bottom time. So some people would believe it's just the time that you spend on the real bottom, but actually the bottom time starts in the moment that we start descending, okay? And will end at the end or of safety stop. So that's really important to take into consideration. That's bottom time, which starts as we descend, and then it ends when we finish our safety stop. Gabrielle, is there anything you want to say? All right, good. Okay, so for example, as I was saying back again, if you are planning our dive, and when we go on our check dive, we're going to ask you to do exactly this. for example, we go into Blue Grotto and we're going to go to 50 feet. So how long can I stay at 50 feet? If we go to table A, we will see your maximum no decompression time or maximum bottom time for that depth is 80 minutes.
And so Victor, for the next one, you want to actually ask them. So you ask them and then they answer. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. You will check in your tables. All right. Great. So now what's the next question? How long can I stay at 80 feet?
Yeah, 32 minutes.
Everyone agrees? It's 32 minutes? Let me
Yeah.
put more faces here because I only have a few faces. Okay. Yeah. So if we check table A, is 32 minutes is the maximum bottom time for 80 feet. So how long can I stay at 100 feet? I see someone is writing in the chat, but I can't read it right now.
Oh, I just said 18.
How long?
18 minutes.
18 minutes, everyone agrees? Good, yeah, so table A, 18 minutes. And that's the first the first part that we need to make sure to understand, or limits. So that's our maximum. And one recommendation we also do is never push your dive planning to the limits, because once you are on the water, something can happen. You know, so maybe you were not paying attention to your gauge, you were a little bit deeper than you were planning. And then if you were deeper and stay longer, then you are in risk to go past your no decompression limits. And this is something we don't want. So never plan your dive for the maximum bottom time on the tables. That's another recommendation we make, okay? Okay, so we have, let's go through some of the decompression theory, all right? And this is how we plan the dive. So we're going to start on the surface, our first dive. Imagine that it's a Saturday, we were working all the week, so we don't have any previous dive. On Saturday, we meet in Blue Grotto and we're gonna start our first dive. What group, dive group, do you think we're gonna be on our first dive? Beginning our first dive.
A.
A, that's correct. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, then here we're gonna add our bottom time. So we're planning our depth here, and then our bottom time here, right? So the blue band, the lighter blue band, it just represents the amount of nitrogen that is accumulating in our body. So we reach the bottom. As we do our dive, the nitrogen started accumulating. We start our ascent, all right? And then when we hit the surface, we have still some nitrogen in our body. Despite we do our 3-minute safety stop, okay? We're still gonna have some residual nitrogen in our body. And that's why we use table B and table C. As we stay during our surface interval, as we see here, the residual nitrogen in our body is reduced because that extra nitrogen is being released as we breathe. Then when we move to our second dive, we still will have some residual nitrogen, but not as much as we finish our first dive, okay? We go to the bottom, and then our nitrogen start to build up again. Oh my God, I don't know if something happened here, but it very much is gonna be as our first profile, okay? So we're gonna start low and it's gonna start accumulating. And when we finish our second dive, we will have an extra residual nitrogen accumulated in our body. And that's the key of the decompression theory. All right. We don't want, okay, there it is.
Yeah, this is, I'm not sure if it's a Microsoft compatibility issue, different versions of PowerPoints, but it's basically the animation is to show the nitrogen accumulating in the body through the dives. So
that's correct. Yes, that's basically what the decompression theory is all about. It's just about the nitrogen that is building up in our body and how we need to make sure to give it enough time to be released safely of our body. Okay. So once we are okay with our planning, we just need to get out there and start our dives. As we dive, as we do our checkout dive, we're going to be more comfortable in the planning and more comfortable in the water, which is the goal, right? So as a summary of this module, we went through some of the diving skills, and we also went through managing some of the physiological problems, the stress or excess of stress, some physical problems, and how to deal with some of the emergencies. And we'll learn the basics of the dive tables. Does anyone have any question to this point? Gabrielle, we are reaching.
Yeah, you know, I'm thinking I'm thinking it's late. I'm thinking this is a good place to stop. I think we're going to stop early tonight and tackle the dive table problems the next time. I think, Victor, is a good idea.
Yeah.
And thank you. You did an excellent job teaching tonight, and so did Ronny, and thank you for being here. And students, any questions? Those of you coming Friday, make sure you get a COVID test, make sure you have a land mask, and be ready to work hard, have a container for water. Read my emails, they have all the details. And if you haven't gotten back to me about your height and weight, that's so important. Please do that. Otherwise, I'm just guessing, you know, and then send me your headshot pictures if you haven't already.
Yeah, I will also recommend you guys to go through your workbook. Start to check, you know, the dive profile problems, because you will, if you can figure out yourself with these basics, you're doing great. But if not, you will come with prepare with some questions for next lecture, which will make things very easier for you and for us as well.
Yeah, the next lecture is really important. And this is why we stopped here instead of going into some of the really heavy stuff. Be ready with your brains next time. It's a lot. So you need to read the textbook completely before then to prepare for it. Okay. All right. If there are no questions, then I'll just say good night, everybody. Thank you for being here. And thank you again, Victor and Ronny.
Thank you.
Yeah,
good job.
Victor, Ronny. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabrielle.
Thanks everyone for your participation.
Have a good night.
Take care.
Bye, everyone. Bye, Ronny.